I get a check and I open the envelope and I look at the check and it's like $263. I'm going, what is this check? And he goes, oh, that's our cash flow from our duplex. And at that moment, I was hooked for life. I wanted passive income. And when I looked at the power of that wealth, I'm like, this is incredible.
Gabe Johansen is president of the SMI family of companies, one of the largest real estate companies in Oregon. And Gabe is considered an authority on real estate brokerage, apartment investments, creative financing structures, syndications, and repositioning underperforming multifamily assets. SMI Real Estate is a full-service brokerage consisting of 50-plus brokers focusing on residential, commercial, and business transactions. SMI Property Management is the Willamette Valley's largest privately held professional property management company, managing 5,400 residential apartment units and several local commercial buildings. And through the SMI Fund Management company, Gabe and his partners are pioneers in the 7-to-1 exchange space and manage a growing fund for investors who can either invest capital or choose to contribute their real estate holdings into the SMI Family Legacy Fund, SMI Legacy Fund. Can't wait to hear about that. Gabe also owns a large portfolio of multifamily real estate valued over $150 million, totaling over 1,000 residential units. Through the combination of investment sophistication and brokerage acumen, he is considered among his peers the industry professionals as the multifamily expert. Gabe is the co-host of the Deal Junkies, a real estate podcast on educating and inspiring new and seasoned investors to help them grow their real estate portfolio. So we have a lot in common. We have a podcast. You invited Gabriel on your podcast. I check my email daily. I've yet to see the invite for this podcast, but just joking, man. Hey, Gabe, we met once. I'd love to dive into your story. Thank you for joining the 0 to 100 podcast. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. And this is your formal invite, Travis. We'll have you on Deal Junkies.
Oh, wow. It's on the air.
On the air.
So it's
All right.
official.
All right.
Gabe,
I'll check my inbox.
Gabe, you have an amazing resume, much in the real estate world, but I'm actually curious, pre-real estate, like little Gabe. I mean, before real estate was on your radar, or maybe you grew up around real estate, I'm not sure. But pre-real estate, what were you doing? And how did real estate really get on your radar?
Well, my first life was in the car business. So I grew up as a car dealer's kid, which sounds cooler than it probably was. My first career, I spent about 20 years in the car business. I started washing cars, got a special hardship workers permit to be able to wash cars on my dad's car lot when I was 14. I learned from a very young age. As a matter of fact, I can still remember the first time I punched a clock. You talked about time freedom. I can remember vividly at 14 years old, the sound of that time clock crunching my time card and the feeling that I had, it broke my soul. It crushed my spirit. I was like, wow, I don't own myself anymore until I come back to this clock again. Even though I was working for my dad and I was only 14 years old, I knew that I was not, that was not what I was cut out for, was being an employee. So I spent 20 years and it was kind of a cool experience for me because I got an education that I don't think is readily available to a lot of people, where I got to be involved in a family business. It was not a super successful business. It was very hard. Most of my family worked there, and working with family is also very hard. And so it was a rough 20 years. I think, we eked out a decent lifestyle out of it, but there was certainly none of these freedoms that you talk about. It was, 12 to 15 hour days, 6 days a week, just grinding it out. Making money in the car business is a hard way to make money. And the way we did it was, I think, maybe one of the hardest ways. But one of the benefits of that is I got to work my way up from washing cars. My dad, when he brought me in, he said, this is it. Like, you can just wash cars the rest of your life. And if you decide you don't like that, you can go talk to the other managers and see if you can work your way up in the company. And so, I'm sure being the owner's kid and all that, I had some advantage, but, I started, I didn't like washing cars, as I imagine most people wouldn't. And so I went to, one of the managers and I said, hey, maybe I could do something else. I ended up working in the service department, eventually became a service advisor. investor, eventually worked my way into sales, learned sales and how to close deals, became a manager. And so I ended up becoming the general sales manager of our car dealership at like 22 or 23 years old. I was really young. I was responsible for 50 plus employees, and I took on a lot of responsibility at a very young age. But it taught me, it taught me sales and marketing and business just from a very boots on the ground perspective. And so did that for 20 years. Ended up, my dad got sick, decided to sell the store. I always thought I was going to own the store one day. That was not in the cards. That's not how it ended up working out. And so we ended up selling the store, and one of my friends owned a real estate company, and we were in a Bible study together. And one day he said, well, what are you going to do after you sell this dealership? And I had offers in the car business to go do other things. And to be quite honest with you guys, I felt like the car business was a prison sentence for me. It was something that, it fed my family. It gave me a lot of opportunity. It taught me a lot of things, but it was not where my heart was. I was sort of doing this because it was my dad's dream to own a car dealership. And I was helping him live out his dream. It wasn't my dream. And so I got the offer from Brian Miles, who was my first real estate mentor, to come in. At the time, he was the owner of SMI, and he sat me down and said words that I didn't even understand at the time. But essentially, he offered me to be his exit partner in the brokerage side of SMI. And but it was interesting because he said, I'm not going to teach you real estate unless you're going to be an investor. And I asked him at that first meeting if I could skip the brokerage part of the business and go straight into investing. And he told me, no, I needed to learn how to broker. I needed to learn how to find deals, win deals, underwrite deals and all that sort of thing. And so I cut my teeth in real estate on the brokerage side. I became an apartment broker, and he connected his desk to mine and did a wonderful job teaching me real estate. He actually bought some buildings with me. We went out and started buying some smallplex stuff and some multifamily. And so yeah, and then he decided he was done and didn't want to be in the brokerage side at all. I ended up buying the brokerage from him and growing it. We had 3 brokers at that time. Today we have 50 plus brokers. And then fast forward 5 years later, they decided they wanted to also sell their management company. And it's a large company. We have, the companies combined are about 200 people total in the SMI family of companies. So I picked up the management side in 2021, and just onward and upward from there. I've bought another management company last year and combined the two together, and we've kicked off our syndication side, and the whole thing is just sort of taken on a life of its own.
Yeah, Gabe, this is incredible. I mean, a lot to unpack. I want to go back a little bit. I mean, even in the beginning, you said you punched the clock, and you knew right away, like, shit, like they own me. This is, my time. But you stayed for 20 years. It sounds like a lot of that was to kind of help fulfill your dad's dream. But I'm curious, when you got the opportunity to partner on the brokerage, I'm curious to your mindset then. Was this like a no-brainer? I feel like when most people get introduced, a lot of people get introduced to real estate. And for some, it's like, this shit makes sense. This is what I'm doing. I know for me, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I'm like, this is the first time I've read something that made sense. I'm going to go do this. And other people, there's millions of other people that have read the book that have done nothing with it, right? So I'm curious, when you got that opportunity and you're hearing all these words you've never heard and you're talking about real estate, was this like an immediate like excitement, energy, like, yes, like I'm in, or what was your mindset like back then?
Well, Rich Dad, Poor Dad for me didn't happen until I was probably already in brokerage for a couple of years. And so I think I had a lot of the same philosophies that are taught in that book that just came to me naturally. It was just something I had learned over time. I had heard there's a few things that stick out in my head. As you jog my memory, my dad used to always look at me. We'd have meetings and we would talk about other people doing other things and making money. And he'd always make this comment to me repetitively that, he got into the wrong line of work, which that also, kind of crushed my spirit, because here I am dedicating my whole life to this mission. And my dad's saying over and over and again, like, oh, we're in the wrong line of business. The other thing is, I had always heard people say that, you're never going to get rich working for somebody else. You got to be, you've got to be an employer. You got to own business. And so owning business was more in the forefront of my mind. But I had also heard people always talk about how if you really want to be wealthy, you have to own real estate. I didn't understand why. I just knew that that was sort of the direction that was like, oh wow, the people that have a lot of money have real estate. I don't know why that is, but it's just the way it is. So, I think for me, I got into real estate. There's a couple of things. I wanted to make money, but I really, really badly to not be in the car business anymore. And so my motivation, the fire under me every day to go out and do what I did and built what I built, was, the fear of having to go back, if I don't make it doing this, that's my fallback. That's what I know how to do is sell cars. And, for, I don't know if that's a healthy reason or not, but it's just something that kept me from, I was just, I had to guarantee myself that I was never going to have to go back. And so, getting into real estate for me was number one, getting out of the car business. Number two, I had heard that this was where you needed to go if you wanted to make money. But really what I wanted to do is I wanted to make now money. I wasn't really looking to build wealth. I didn't know a lot about how to build generational wealth and the reasons why you own real estate and the reasons why wealthy people look at real estate the way they look at it. So my brain wasn't developed in those days. I just knew I needed to do something to make money, and that looked like the best thing in front of me at that time. And I'm also, I'm a man of faith, and I believe that God sort of lays out for us these opportunities, and that felt like an opportunity that was not, it was not a mistake, and it's not something that everybody gets a chance to have a guy like Brian come alongside you and say like, hey, I want to teach you how to do this. And he's just a super well-respected guy. If he would have come to me and said, I want to go start a fishing lure company, I would have gone with him. He was just like, he was that guy. I would just followed him into battle. And so it happened to be that he was the multifamily guy in our area. And I was lucky enough to be able to connect my desk to his and spend 4 years getting a one-on-one education from him.
I think you mentioned not wanting to go back into the car business. We talk about this in the tribe a lot. I mean, if you're building a business, if you're building a real estate portfolio, I mean, it's not like Instagram, right? It's not easy, right? People, there's a Billy cashing another check in front of his Lambo and everything's rosy and everybody's high-fiving. And of course, until the last few years happened and there were...
Yeah, when you read my bio, my blood pressure went up. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all those things. How do I get all that done?
No,
too much to think about.
I know it's a very impressive bio for sure. But I'm going back to the not wanting to go sell cars, not wanting to work in the car business. Like we talk about that as being your why. And if you don't have a really strong why, when you're going to build anything, go find a why or go work for the post office or something. And I think that's a great why. And your whys are different. My why early on was to not be mediocre. I was very competitive in life. Your why was to not go back to the car business. In fact, I would imagine you probably had nightmares where you were like back in the car business again.
You know what's funny is 9 out of 10 of the dreams that I remember when I wake up still to this day are on a car lot.
Wow.
Right. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So I love that. That's your burning why. I'm curious, is that still your burning why? My why has changed. It's family, it's time freedom. Is your why changed, or are you still just like, nope, never going back to the car lot?
I think I'm to the point now where I know I'll never have to go back. It's funny. I have another mentor, Paul Curley, we talk about a lot, and he calls it a healing process. He grew up as a poor farmer, and now that he's made his wealth in real estate, he's going out and he's buying ranches. And it's sort of like this circle back to the beginning. And so he keeps telling me that once I get to a certain point, I'm going to go buy a car dealership. I'm like, no.
Wow, that's crazy. As long as you rent it out to the owners, you don't have.
Yeah. I'll own the lot. Yeah, exactly. Not the business.
That's what I'm saying. I was raised in a double wide, and now I buy mobile home parks.
Yeah, I buy mobile home parks. Yeah, for my healing process, I don't want to go back to the car business. It's not. I don't think the why today. I think I've somehow amassed a great deal of responsibility and have a lot of people relying on me. And to be quite honest, like I'm just having the time of my life. I'm having just having a lot of fun. My motto is make friends and have fun. And I just like hanging out with you guys and doing this. I just can't, for me, this is a blast. This is just, I'm having so much fun doing this. I'm having so much fun helping people get into real estate. I love running the companies. I love to make money. I love buying buildings. I love helping people buy buildings. So it just happened to be that I got into it, and maybe it was the 20 years of the grind in something that really wasn't my passion, that got me to the point where the next thing was just like, wow, this is way better. But for me, it just feels like a natural fit. I really enjoy all aspects of real estate, of property management and brokerage, and being an owner. And I just think that, some of my brokers and some of my partners call me the real estate preacher, because I get pretty excited about things, and I'm not, everybody I talk to, every conversation I have is about like, hey, do you own any buildings? Would you like to own buildings? Here's the reason why you should own buildings. And I just feel like, I've been given knowledge that I should not keep to myself. I feel like this is something, I'm an abundance guy like you guys are. I feel like we can all do this. It's not a win-lose thing where I can do it, you can't do it. I feel like all of our listeners and all of our clients and everybody that we work with, everybody can find some level of the freedoms they're looking for in their life by owning real estate.
Well, there's also like turn around and it sounds like you had a great mentor, which we always recommend. Find a great mentor. Sometimes work for free. We've had guys on the podcast that were like knocking on doors, like, I'll work for you for free. But also karma's great, right? He helped you out. He was your mentor. And now I'm assuming you're turning back around and you're offering a hand down to the next person.
It's funny. I'm only on the board of one nonprofit, and it's called Valor Mentoring. We're a mentoring organization. I truly, in my heart, believe that mentoring matters. It's super important. And I think that we all need to be mentored. I've always had different mentors through life, even if they didn't know they were my mentor. I've always had these people that I really respected and looked up to and learned from. And I think that it's important. You kind of will outgrow your mentors sometimes, or you've gotten what you're going to get and you sort of move on. I think it's important to always have mentors in your life. And then I think it's also important to be mentoring other people. And so there's this great chain of like, I've got some of these older, very wise, very, successful people that are mentoring me. And then I've got younger people that want to come up, and I'm sort of in the middle. And it's a really fun part of life because I'm passing this information on like a conduit from, these wise old sages who have done it already. And now I'm able to sort of help bring up the next generation of these investors and pass that knowledge on. And in the middle, I just benefit from it. I get to own more buildings. My clients get to own more buildings. Our brokers get to own more buildings. And it's just, it's just a win-win-win for everybody.
Gabe, a question I have for you. One of the pillars in 0 to 100 is scale. And I think it's a question. I know it was a question that Travis and Mitch had early on. And like, why is it that some people, they buy a duplex and never more? And maybe it took them 20 years to buy 2 rental units, and other people can scale to hundreds or even thousands of units, sometimes in a short period of time. And I'm just curious. I mean, you've scaled, both the brokerage, you've scaled the property management, you've scaled on the investment side. I guess it's a 2-part question. Like, what have you contributed to your own scalability, but also why is it that you think oftentimes younger, newer investors kind of stop at these? Is it a mindset thing? Is it a belief thing? Like, why is it that so many people stop at, say, 2 units and never more? And other people, including yourself, have been able to scale to, a massive portfolio.
To be honest, sometimes I'm jealous of the people who can buy 2 units and just stop. So
We're addicts. We're addicts.
I am an addict. Yeah. I'm actually, truly am an addict. I'm a drug addict, and I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. I've got over 20 years of sobriety now.
Wow.
The addictive personality type is, it's dangerous. It's really dangerous, but.
Hey, give us the name of your podcast one more time.
Deal Junkies.
Okay. I figured there were a little more backstory.
Yeah. So I was an actual junkie also. And, it's interesting. The addictive personality type, if it can be steered in the right direction, is a superpower. So part of it is, part of it is just my own mental illness or whatever you want to call it. Like when you said we're going to be on the 0 to 100 podcast today, I'm a black and white extreme thinker. It's all or nothing. And so the first thought that went through my head is like, for this episode, can we do 0 to 200?
Sure.
I don't, it's like, it's a blessing and a curse. I don't know why I am this way, but for whatever reason, just naturally, it's like, I either don't want to do it at all, or I want to do it all the way. Like I'm just dialed up. I'm an intense personality. I'm dialed all the way up. Yeah. I don't know if it's good or not. I mean, like, I think that part of it is, some people get in, and I've actually heard stories, other real estate professionals in our community, like a lot of other brokerages and brokers don't really invest, which I think is one of the saddest things that happens in real estate. It's one of the reasons I've built the SMI real estate company around investors. All of our brokers are investors. And so
I can't echo that more. Sorry to interrupt, but when you're a buyer and you see maybe a residential broker that doesn't invest in, say, multifamily or whatever the case is,
doesn't even own their own home.
right? Or they take a listing though to sell one of the best deals we've ever got was a 50 pad mobile home park listed by a residential broker on the MLS. Had no idea what they were doing, and I mean, they're just not doing they're doing everybody a disservice. We're doing the buyers.
As a buyer, we really like that, right? I mean, there is a place in my heart for brokers who don't understand the deal that they're bringing to the market. But what's really sad to me is, brokers got in like I did to make some now money and to get some income going, and they're out there and they're in the world of where people are really building an extreme amount of wealth, and they're not getting in. And so a lot of brokerages really sort of frown on the idea of brokers being investors, because they don't want them competing with their clientele, or what I think is kind of more evil way to look at it is they don't want them to go out and have the time freedom and the financial freedom, because then they don't have to go generate those commissions where the company takes the splits. I don't look at things like that. I'm an abundance guy, and I believe that for me is what happened. I brokered for a few years, and I got in, and I liked I couldn't believe the first commission check I got. I was like, you're going to pay me. I mean, I would work my ass off to make $300 selling a car, and here I do this deal and everybody's having fun, and it takes a couple months or whatever, and I get this check for 25 grand. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this is
a lot of cars.
Yeah. I was like, I don't need a spreadsheet for this. I'm like, this is clearly the path I'm going, right?
Well, I would say that sales, and I say this all the time because I'm an entrepreneur and I grew a business as well. And I think I was forced into sales to like eat. And I would say sales is a learned skill. I would say that it's something that if anybody wants to build a business or even a real estate portfolio, you need to learn some form of sales, whether you're selling yourself to investors, to lenders, to just different stakeholders in the industry. You've got to be able to articulate and sell and be passionate about something. Would you agree? Would you say that because man, selling cars is the ultimate boiler room of sales. You're getting your ass kicked. You're getting your teeth kicked in every single bed. Would you agree with my statement there?
I couldn't agree more, Travis. I would say that sales is it's a life skill. And
that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
I
mean, really, if you want to make it in life, period, you have to learn how to sell. You're always going to be selling something. I mean, even if you're a W-2 employee, you're selling your time, and you're trying to get a raise based on, now your time is worth more because you learned a new skill or something. You're always selling. And
or if you want friends like I was when I was a kid, I had to sell, just to get people.
Yeah. I mean, I tell the story, it came to me naturally. I was like you. It was like, if I don't learn how to sell, I'm not going to be able to eat. My parents, kind of grew up in different backgrounds. My mom grew up super, super poor. And so when I wanted something, even if we had some money or whatever, like she didn't want to buy me anything. It's like, it's like February, and she'll be like, well, your birthday's in November, and I'm going, well, I don't want to wait till November. I'm 8 years old. I want what I want now, And so, I just in my blood, I can remember being a kid and thinking about how I was actually concerned about how I was going to make money. I was thinking I was I mean, maybe that's
great.
not a healthy thing, but
Every kid should try to
so,
think through that.
so I'll tell you a story that's kind of a fun story. My dad being a car guy, every once in a while they'd do these mailer sales, and they'd send out an invitation, come in and test drive a car, and you get a free doodad or whatever. And so they did one of these mailer sales. And the big thing was, if you come in and drive a car, you get this ugly little like brass art thing, right? Like this, this is like in the early 80s. And so maybe they were cool back then, but you probably got the postcard and thought you were going to get like this big thing you put on your wall. And it's this little thing, this little like, 8x8 brass picture. And so sale ended and they had a stack of these things left over. And he brought them home. And I'm like, hey, Dad, can I have those? And he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know, just, something. I don't know. I'll make something out of them or whatever. And he's like, sure, take them, do whatever you want. So I took them. And the next day I went out and got on my bicycle. And I was probably like 9 or 10 years old. And I got on my bicycle and I rode around my neighborhood knocking door to door. And I remember because I'd always do a great job selling candy bars from my school, and I go and I say, hey, I'm from Fort Washington Elementary. We're selling these candy bars to raise money. And I thought to myself, well, I could go knock on the same doors and I could tell them I'm from Fort Washington Elementary School. I'm not selling them to raise money for the school. I'm just selling them. And so, I was a little bit of a shyster from, 9 or 10 years old. I'm riding my bike around. I ride my bike around the whole neighborhood. And I knock on the door and I sold every single one, the whole entire stack of those things. And I came home with like $300. And I didn't know what to do with the money. I didn't even go spend the money. I didn't go buy an ice cream cone. I didn't go buy a toy or anything. I went and I stashed it in my dresser drawer under my socks in my dresser drawer. And a couple weeks went by and I came home from school one day. And my mom calls me into my bedroom and she's sitting on the edge of my bed and she looks at me and she says, I have a bone to pick with you. And I was like, okay, I'm thinking, what did I do wrong this time? And so she tells me to sit down in bed and she whips out my $300 and she's like, okay, cough it up. Like, where did you get all this money? And I said, oh, well, I went around and
It's even worse.
I sold all those things that Dad gave me or whatever.
Now you got to go work for your dad.
She looked at me and she said, she was mad at me, but she was probably proud at the same time. And she's like, every time you want something, you come and ask me for money. Why are you asking me for money when you have money? And I said, because I don't want to spend my money. I'm saving my money. She says, from now on, you're buying all your own stuff. Don't ever come ask me for money again. She goes, well, by the way, you have more money than your dad and I have right now. It's like, it's one of these things, And so that was a moment in my life. It was just instinctual for me, to want to sell and to make money. And, like I said, maybe part of that story is a little bit sad that an 8 or 9-year-old kid thinks they need to go out and, make money. But at the same time, I think maybe I was just born with the spirit of selling. Besides the fact that, let's not hide the fact that sales is a drug, right? And so I was probably a drug addict from a young age, and I got excited when I sold something. Sure, you get to make money, but it's fun to sell something. It's a game and it's a fun game. So anyway, going back to what I was saying about real estate, it was like, I could sell anything and I knew I could make money doing this, but then I saw the kind of wealth that my clients were building. And it just really, I guess, tugged on my heart to help. I wanted to help brokers be able to build portfolios. I wanted them to be able to own real estate. And so that's the whole DNA of our brokerage side of our company is we don't bring our brokers in unless they're either investing or they want to become investors. And so when we have our meetings, they sort of act like a co-op. It's like an investor club where we buy deals from each other, we partner with each other, we broker to each other, we help each other find money, we help each other through problems. And it's just a great community where we come together. and it's really quite opposite from other brokerages because we'll actually help each other with deals. It's a lot more win-win and abundance mindset because not only are we trying to broker deals together, but we're also trying to own real estate, and it creates this collaborative energy in our company where we have brokers that are willing to help each other do more things than where you might find, I think, in other companies.
If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and want to come and hang out with us, as well as other members who are scaling in cash flow real estate, you've got to check out our Elite Mastermind. Inside, we've got investors who own hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate and are doing amazing things. We'd love for you to come join us. Click the link below.
I love that your focus is on actually buying assets, helping investors, building wealth. I'm curious to when you realize the difference, right? Like you're selling brass plaques, you're making money. You're selling cars, you're making money. You start a brokerage and you're selling homes, you're making money. Like for me early on, I really understood there's a difference between making money and building wealth. Mm-hmm. And so like I really focus on the wealth building part. I'm working these low paying jobs, but I'm buying properties. My friends think I'm crazy. I'm like, yeah, but I own assets. I own something. I'm building wealth. All these years later, it makes sense. So I'm curious to when that shifted for you. I think you called it now money.
Yeah. Now money and tomorrow money. Yeah.
Yeah. When did that shift when it really clicked of like, there is a difference between making money and actually building wealth and potentially generational wealth?
Yeah. There's a dark side to having this sales mentality, being a closer, having the silver tongue, like knowing that you have to go produce every single day. There's a stress that's sort of, maybe it's low grade sometimes, but there's like a, it's like every day I got to get up and go survive. I've got to go make it. I got to go. It's this innate sort of instinct that I have to go produce or I'm not going to survive. And it's
still that way today, every day.
Maybe a little. I won't lie. Maybe it's still in me a little bit. But part of it was like, salespeople also don't like rejection. And so in real estate, if you're on a car lot, they want you to pick up the phone and call people and try to get them to come in and buy a car. But everybody knows for the most part, car salesman's going to stand around smoking cigarettes, spitting, cussing, joking, whatever car salesmen do until somebody walks on a car lot. And that's what the car dealership is doing. It's providing the inventory and the leads that are walking right in. And a car salesman is very, very good in person. They have to learn how to win people over instantly, make friends immediately. Otherwise, they're not going to survive. They're not going to make it. Being on the phone is a different interaction. It's a lot harder to make friends on the phone. It's a lot harder to win people over. Cold calling is just, it's in my opinion, is just sort of like the worst part of the business. It's not my favorite part at all. And so, you get up every day and you got to go put a deal together. Maybe you don't have a pipeline. You don't have any commissions. You're running out of money. When you're selling cars, at least I could get up and be broke. And by the end of the day, I could have some money. When I'm selling real estate, if I don't have a pipeline, and I'm broke today, I might be broke for another 3 or 6 months, until I get another commission. And so a lot of, people that are retail minded or even people that are residential real estate, they want to get a payday in 30 days or whatever. They want to know that they can solve that equation very, very quickly. In commercial real estate, selling big buildings, these deals sometimes take 6 months, a year. I'm working on a deal right now that we're 18 months into. Like one day, hopefully it's a big payday, and maybe it will be and maybe it won't be. But like, I don't have that regular ongoing reoccurring income. And so for me, just in the first couple of years of brokerage, like, this is really cool that I can make a lot of money brokering deals. But what I'd really like to do is have just a base. I'd like to have at least $5,000 a month coming in that I don't have to worry about, so that I feel like even if I have a bad month or I'm not able to make the big deal, I at least have my base covered, the freedoms that you guys talk about all the time. And so it was small thinking for me to think like that then, but that's kind of what got me going. And so
what was your plan? Was it, hey, I can do this through owning cash flow real estate?
Cash flow real estate was that was the idea. It's like, I'm going to learn this business and then I'm going to buy some real estate. So Brian and I went out, took us 3 years to find our first deal. We went out and bought $100,000 duplex, total piece of crap. Roof was caving in on it. It was not inhabitable. Like, we had to spend some money on it, but I went and borrowed the money from a friend to buy it, private money, bought this thing for $100,000, borrowed some more money from him to clean it up and get it rented out. And to be honest, like, that first building, I was not excited to buy it. I was not excited to work on it. I was not excited when it rented up and it was done. I was not excited to film videos of myself cleaning it up. None of that stuff. Like, so far along that path, like, it still hadn't quite, it had the love for real estate had not taken hold yet. And so and in a way, I really didn't like it at all. And so we got to the point where, we ran out of rehab money, and then now I have to write checks. And at this point, I hadn't used a down payment. I hadn't put any of my own money into rehab, but now our budget, we'd gone over budget. It wasn't going to take 25 grand. It was going to take 40 grand. So now me and Brian, we need $15,000. Well, that's $7,500. I own this thing 50%. The day that I wrote a $7,500 check to that property, I hated being a real estate investor. I did not want to be a real estate investor. I was like, this is not what I signed up for. I could be over here going out selling an apartment building, make $50,000. Why am I screwing around on this side, owning this building and having to write a check for $7,500? Well, we got the thing rented up. And I'll never forget the day. Like, it finally, it took 6 months to get it cleaned up and rented up, do the whole thing. And finally, probably like 9 months in or something like that, I get a check on my desk, and I open the envelope and I look at the check, and it's like $263. I'm going, what is this check? $263. I asked Brian, I said, what is this? And he goes, oh, that's our cash flow from our duplex. And at that moment, I was hooked for life. Like, that little check, I was like, wait a second. I didn't have to do anything for this check. This check just showed up. And so anyway, of course, my addictive personality is like, okay, like, immediately went and bought a triplex and a fourplex and an 11 unit. Like, just, I found ways to go out and do the, still didn't have any money, but I found ways to get myself into deals.
Hey, Gabe, can I unpack that for a minute?
Yeah. Which is interesting, right? Like, it was a small amount of money, because most people's first deal it's not like it's cash flow and usually tens of thousands of dollars. It's usually, I would say most guests we have on their first property, maybe it's a house hack, maybe it's duplex, it's like $200 a month of cash flow, $300 a month of cash flow.
Yep.
A lot of people go back to that, like, yeah, but I could go make $50K selling a property. So yeah, Travis, I kind of interrupted you, but.
No, you're fine. So I know there's people that listen to this podcast and they're saying, okay, great. He went from 0 to 1,000 units. Like, a lot of times people can't connect the dots. So I do want to get a little tactical for our listeners so they can sort of figure out, how can I go from, 0 to 1,000 units? And I want to kind of walk through that journey. My first question is, in that journey, why did it take 3 years? Because we have people in our elite mastermind, which is part of the 0 to 100 tribe. They might be on 8 months, a year, maybe 12, 18 months, and they haven't found a deal yet. And they're starting to get really, really frustrated. It's a tough time right now, right? Sellers are
excitement to frustration.
Right. You can see it on the calls. Like, they started out and they're a year in, and like, I still, they get into contract. Maybe the numbers don't pan out. The sellers don't come their way on price and diligence, whatever the case is. They get out of contract and they're starting to question the process. And I'm listening to you saying, yeah, it took us 3 years to buy just a rundown little crappy duplex. So that's my first question. Why did it take 3 years? And how did you stay motivated to keep swinging the bat every day to get to that duplex?
I think for me, I'm a relationship guy, which makes me a natural partner. I love people. I love when we win, we get to win together. And when we lose, I only have to write a portion of that check, right? But for me in the beginning, I did not have the guts to go out and buy real estate by myself. And so I trusted Brian, and I was not going to buy a deal without Brian. And I didn't know what I was doing. And he was my guy. He was my rock, And so, one of the reasons he's a rock is because he is ultra conservative. And like, he was not going to bring me into a deal that might fail. It was going to be like 100% we're going to knock it out of the park deal, or we're not doing it. And so I think what kept me going is we always talk about getting into real estate, and there are different ways that you can do it. And if you're out working a W-2 or you're running some other business or whatever, it's very difficult to immerse yourself in the world of real estate the way it is if maybe you become a broker or a wholesaler or a flipper or something, like trying to get into the world of real estate. And so for me, luckily, my job was already to go out and try to find deals because I was trying to broker. And then while I'm trying to find deals, maybe I see one that's small enough, or the seller will carry, or something will happen to where maybe I could get to own one too. And so, it was the same activity, and it would just be like, okay, I'm uncovering business, I'm trying to broker deals. And then I'd be like, hey, Brian, what about this one? Like every single day for 3 years, I'm like, what about this one? What about this one? Part of my process, I think, was I didn't know what a deal was. I didn't know how to underwrite a deal. I didn't know the pitfalls of a deal. And I just didn't know, if I handed him 300 deals, we probably would have done great on 100 of those. But I would have jumped into one of the other 200 that would have wiped us out, and I would have hated investing and never gone where I went. And his thing to me was, you can't stub your toe on the first deal. Like, it's okay to stub your toe, just don't stub it on the first deal. And part of that isn't about losing money so that you can't get back in. Part of it is just about really, I think, losing your mojo, losing the energy to want to go do it, right? Because now you've started off on the wrong foot. And so I think it was wise to go through the process. And it's funny, I did bring a couple of deals that I really thought were deals to him, and he was like, yeah, that's a good deal, but it's not for you, I'll buy it. And he would buy it. So I broker a couple of deals to him, and then in the future I'd be like, that bastard, he took my deal. Like, I found that deal and he took that deal. Really what was happening was he was showing me, I was developing my brain to be able to understand, just the reps of looking at deals over and over and over and over to understand what is really a deal and what isn't a deal, so that it can become instinctual. And so anyway, the first deal worked out great. We owned it a couple of years. It cash flowed. I traded it into an 11 unit property. Like, it did all the things that real estate was supposed to do. And that's what he wanted for me. And so I think, I don't know if that answers your question, but I still needed to make now money. I wasn't, I knew that I needed to start to build a portfolio for tomorrow. One of the things Brian taught me also was that, you shouldn't really live on the cash flow. Like, you should find a way while you're in your working years to earn as much income as you can, and you should build a portfolio for the future. And so I was never hyper focused on, just like, I need to retire right now. I knew I was going to be a broker. I was hoping I would own businesses. I would own the brokerage, and I never knew that I would own all the other SMI companies as well. But, that was the cash flow part of business to me. I love that I can scale a business, and then in 30 days I can go, I look at my P&L and go, like, it worked or it didn't work. And I get this immediate feedback to where I get to put money in my bank account, or I lose money, and I can make decisions based on that. My portfolio, very much, what's harder to get excited about is knowing that I'll buy a building and it may not stabilize for a year, 2 years, 3 years. I might be feeding that property for a long time until, we build up enough equity, or we can trade that into another deal, or we can refinance. The value add game that we play is not super cash flow heavy. Like, the building, it's a good thing I have businesses that cash flow. That's really my now money, because I buy a lot of buildings that take up a lot of capital. The businesses give me the foundation to be able, the bigger I can grow the businesses, the more I can go play around with the buildings, so the buildings suck up a bunch of cash. So a lot of people in their mind, like, if I understand on a spreadsheet what it looks like. And to be honest, like, it took really up until just a few years ago for me to truly understand the power of what your portfolio can do for you, because I had the best in 2022. I had the best 6 months I'd ever had in real estate. I think a lot of people did the first half of 22. The second half of 22 was total garbage, and it sucked. But in that first 6 months, my CPA and we went through and we analyzed how much I had made in brokering and in business. And I was absolutely killing it. And then we looked at my portfolio, which I wasn't really even paying attention to. And my portfolio outperformed me 5-1. And I was like, I mean, in my best moment, that proves to me the power of having a real estate portfolio. It didn't necessarily put 5-1 cash in my pocket. It just grew. It grew and grew and grew. And as we were good operators and pushed the rents and improved the properties, we were able to develop a lot of equity and build this nice base. And so I think the two go hand in hand really well, but it's very difficult, especially in the Oregon market or on the West Coast, to go out and just say, I'm just going to start buying up buildings and then it's going to provide me enough cash flow to give me the freedom that I want. For me anyway, my portfolio, I could live on the cash flow, but I wouldn't be able to live the lifestyle I want to live. The businesses allow me to live the way I want to live. And the buildings are doing better and better and better over time. And eventually, I'll probably make more money than I know what to do with. But it's I started this portfolio 10 years ago. And to be quite honest, the gratification is delayed so far out. I think a lot of people would just lose hope. They'd be like, and even some days, there are days where I'm like, what am I doing? Why do I go buy another building? Like, it's just going to cost me more money. Like, if I just built my businesses, I could just be stacking up cash over and over and over. But one of the things I learned through the Rich Dad Poor Dad and the education that I took is when you study wealthy people, they use buildings and they want buildings more than money. Like commercial real estate is the currency of the rich. And when I learned that concept, I realized that I was out, especially my small mind, I want to go make $5,000 a month in passive income. When I did get there, by the way, it took me a few years and I got to that point where I wanted to be. And when I got there and I looked at the amount of equity that I had, I was like, oh my God, I'm a moron. Like I was doing it just like I got into real estate to not be in the car business. I wanted passive income so that I wouldn't have to hit the phones as hard. And then I built up this passive income and by accident, I had all of this wealth built. And when I looked at the power of that wealth, I'm like the slowest learner possible. And I got to that point and I'm like, holy crap. Like this is incredible. This is something everybody needs to be talking about. This is something everybody needs to be doing. So if you're listening to this, don't give up. If you're a year or two in and you haven't bought a building or you've only bought a duplex, don't give up. My mentor today, Paul Curley, he tells me you just have to inch it along. It's just literally just a slog. It's a slow grind to build that portfolio and to let it season and let it do what it's going to do. We all want that instant gratification. We want to know that, wow, it's like a flipper. I want to buy this thing and I want to clean it up and sell it a month or two later and make a big payday. It's just not the way. To me, that's not really investing. To me, I did try flipping houses. I lost a ton of money. If you ever want to know how not to flip houses, call me. I'll tell you all the mistakes you should not make. To me, that's not really investing to be flipping. To me, that's just like, it felt like I was back on the car lot, but worse. It was a job. It was a job. It was risk. It was hard. It was the engagement I had with other people was not friendly. A lot of times I didn't like it. I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't making friends. I wasn't having fun. What I do today very much, feeds me. It feeds my spirit. It's aligned with my personality and my mission and owning buildings for whatever reason. I look at the bank account and I look at the buildings and there's this sort of myth. My partners and I talk about this. Trevor Howard, one of the co-hosts of Deal Junkies, we talk about how, having too much cash is a myth because for us, we can never get enough cash because we start to build up our cash reserves and we'll always find a building we want more than the cash. We'll always find a deal. And so maybe at some point we'll get out of growth mode and we'll let the whole thing settle down and just cash flow for us. But at the stage that we're at in growth mode, it doesn't matter how much cash I get, I will always go convert it into another asset.
Because you understand wealth building.
Exactly. I saw the spreadsheet my CPA showed me.
Yeah, easy numbers. Something I want to touch on before I want to make sure we do not end the show without talking about the 721 exchange. I think a lot of investors, a lot of our listeners, our elite members, we've all heard of the 1031 exchange.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have heard about the 721 exchange. I'm actually only familiar with it because I had some properties that I was looking at potentially selling to you guys, and I had a broker that said, "Hey, there's this 721 exchange," and I'm like, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. I've never heard of
I
it.
do nothing. I know nothing about the 721 exchange.
Yeah, I texted
So-
you, Travis, and said, and Mitch said, "You guys ever heard of the 721 exchange?" So tell us what it is, and then how you're using it as a tool to invest in real estate and also to help others invest in real estate.
Well, yeah, one of the youngest SMI companies is SMI Fund Management. CEO is Logan DeVos. You guys should have Logan on your show. You guys you'll love having him. He can explain in a lot more detail what it is. He's probably the most brilliant real estate mind I've ever met. So Logan and I are partners on that. We brought in our securities attorney, Gary Schnell, and our real estate CPA, Adam Aplenalp, in as principals of that company. So we have a CPA and counsel on staff, and then Logan's brain. And to be quite honest, when I'm in that group of four, like I probably look a little special needs because I can't compute really what's happening half the time. So
I'm looking at a picture of Logan online. He looks really smart. He
is a brilliant young man. He's in his 30s. We've been partners for years. A lot of the buildings I own are with Logan. And for years, we had talked about wanting to do syndication. I think a lot of investors, once they get to a certain point, they sort of see the writing on the wall of, we can pool investor resources, buy bigger deals, get better debt, and then, take some sponsor fees and do some other stuff. It's another way to make now money. And so the SMI Fund Management Company was something we've been talking about. We talked about it for about 5 years, and about 2 years ago, we finally decided that we were going to kick it off. And Logan came up with this idea. He's like, "Hey, have you ever read the IRS tax code 721?" And it's like, "No, I've never read any tax code because that's dumb. Like, who reads the tax code?" Well, Logan does. And so anyway, the 721, we call it a 721 exchange. I don't know if we coined that term or not, but essentially, IRS tax code 721 allows you to exchange equity of your property and contribute that into a fund to exchange for shares of ownership in a fund. And so what we did is we pooled a lot of our buildings together. We built a portfolio for the fund, and we had been like everybody else, running around like, buy this duplex, buy this fourplex, buy all these little properties and everything. And we take on a partner here and a partner there. And, it starts to get convoluted after a while. And you go like, man, how do we simplify this a little bit? So a few years ago, Logan and I and our partners, we bought a 100-unit property on the campus of Oregon State University. And it was just a brilliant deal. We did 9 forward exchanges and 3 reverse exchanges to buy one property. So this is like, I call this Logan's magnum opus, and he can explain this deal to you better than I can. But when we showed up to the closing table, there were 12 of us sitting around a conference table at the title company, and there was a stack of papers that was like 3 feet high. It was the craziest closing I've ever seen in my life. What happened was we bought a building. We did a really great job. It was a value add. We picked it up for about $15 million. Today, it's worth almost $30 million. And it has a commercial building that we're going to knock down and build another 60 units on. It's going to turn into, probably near $100 million property, maybe $75 million by the time it's all said and done. We already have national players that are knocking on the door that want to talk about it when we decide that we're going to sell that and move into something else. So this was a really big move for us to take a bunch of scattered partnerships and roll them into this big deal, and then to just kill it the way that we did, to be able to now our next move will be buying $100 million property with. And so the power of that is pooling the resources to be able to go out and buy bigger deals. And if you've been around real estate for a while, and as you start to get into bigger deals, you'll find it's so much easier. It's easier to borrow money. The debt is better. They cash flow better. They're easier to improve the value on. Like, you just get all the scale things that you're looking for. You get 100 times over in a 100-unit complex, right? And so seeing the magic of how that all went together, the idea is how do we take all of our partnerships and all of our smaller assets and pool them into a fund? And that's what we did. That's how we launched the SMI Fund Management Company and the SMI Legacy Fund. And we all did that ourselves with our own assets, and not all of them have come in yet. We're doing it over time because we have
really fast, just so I understand. Did these people, all these little partners, these plexes and stuff that you own, did they all sell and then roll the proceeds into this building?
No, it's cool. So we just literally contributed in for exchange of shares. It's like, it's got a cap table, right? And so, this fund now, instead of having all of these scattered partnerships and all this stuff, now we go into one. Now we had to go get new debt on those properties. So there's, I guess a big cohort. There's a big demographic of people out there that own real estate. They've built their wealth. And you get to the point, real estate's a really great way to build wealth. It's not a very easy way to extract wealth, right? And so you might be able to get some cash flow off of that big amount of equity that you have, but ultimately in the end, you've built up this huge amount of wealth. And how do I get that out? Well, there's only a few ways to do it. I could go refinance, and I could I do a cash out refi, but now I'm older and I don't really want to take on a bunch of debt because I don't want to pass that on to my kids, right? So what else could I do? Well, I could go sell it, but I don't want to. If I sell it, I'm going to have to pay a big tax bill. Now Uncle Sam's going to dip his hand in my pocket and take, 30-40% of what I've built over this time. That's not really a fun way to do it. So maybe I could sell it on contract and let somebody buy it. And this is a great way for us as buyers. We go out and buy a lot of deals, sell or carry. They want to carry for us because they don't want the big tax bill. They want to kick that can down the road or take it over time, right? So, sell or carry is one way to do it. But if I'm a seller going, well, if I'm doing sell or carry now, instead of being the building owner, now I become the bank. And so now I got to really underwrite my borrower, and I've really got to understand the risk that I'm taking. And now, I'm already 70 years old, 75 years old. What happens when I'm 80 and that guy fails and I got to go take that building back? Now I'm legal proceedings and foreclosures, and now I take the building back and it's half empty and they've run it into the ground, and I got to go figure out how to put it back together again. Like that's not an idea. For some people, that's the biggest fear, is they sell to a bad operator. It's not that they don't get their money back. They're more afraid that they're going to get the building back in a stage in life where they don't want to have to deal with that nightmare, right? And so what is a way that we could take somebody who's at that stage in their investment cycle? And by the way, we have contributors that come in of all ages. People that are younger than me have contributed into the fund. But it's designed for somebody who wants to maintain the benefits of ownership, the four economic benefits. They still get to get cash flow. They still get to get principal buy down. They still get to get depreciation. Their depreciation schedule follows them into the fund, and they still get to get appreciation. And we can pool all of our buildings together, and some people put in cash, some people put in buildings. We take that all and we go do bigger deals, right? Like we did on this campus property.
Gabe, give me a real life scenario. So I had some older properties I was selling, right? I have a lot of equity in these properties. I've owned them for a long time. Let's just use one property as an example. Say it's worth $1 million. I owe a few $100,000 on it, and I want to sell it, or I want to contribute to the fund. What would that look like? Apartment complex, $1 million. I owe a few $100,000, and I want to be involved. What would that look like?
So the first requirement would be you could go and apply on our site to see if your property qualifies to come into the fund. Our company will look at that and decide for whether or not that's a good asset to bring in or not. We require that you contribute at least 35 to 45%, depending on the asset of the total value of the property. That way, it's not taking out cash from the fund. We're not having to use a down payment, in other words. So what we're doing is we're taking people out of the driver's seat. They're not having to manage the property day to day. They don't have to be on the debt with us. They don't have the tort liability. So we get sued. It's on the sponsors, not on them. So we get to take away all the bad things of ownership from them and give them the good things. So in your scenario, you have $700,000 in equity. You may want to contribute and trade all 700 for shares of the fund, or you may say, you know what, Gabe, I would like to have a couple $100,000 back. I want to go on a trip or buy a car or pay some other loan off or whatever you want to do with that money. That would technically be boot to you, just like in a 1031 exchange. So you can take some cash and contribute. Essentially, what you're doing is you're signing your property over to us. And now, $1 million in today's world is, a fourplex or a sixplex or whatever that is. And so now instead of owning 100% of your fourplex, let's say, and we've done this recently with a couple of small plexes, it comes into the fund, and now you own a small piece of a big portfolio that's got hundreds of doors, right? And it's just growing very, very rapidly.
Then you put new debt. Are you paying off that debt, or how's that look?
Yeah. So in smaller deals like this deal, $1 million deal, we may just pay cash for it and deal with it later and refinance or do something, depending on what our goals are for that property. But one example is we had a couple just a few months ago. They contributed their fourplex in. They had a couple of vacancies. We took it over and it got a third vacancy. So here we got a property that's 75% vacant. It's a fourplex. It's in relatively decent condition, but we need 3 turns. So we brought it into the fund. We have an appraisal done, and we agree that if we reject the appraisal, that we'll pay for the appraisal fee. But you as the contributor is going to pay for that appraisal for it to come into the fund. We have the same appraiser appraise our fund. They appraise every property in our fund and do an AO3 update quarterly. Okay. And so that same appraiser appraises your property. So we're comparing apples to apples. Doesn't really matter if you think yours is worth $1 million. The appraiser says it's worth 900. It's like he's appraising on the same metrics that he's appraising the fund. So it all comes in apples to apples. And so you contribute that in based on the appraised value, whatever that appraised value is. We'll tell you approximately what we think it's going to appraise for going in. So there's not a lot of guesswork there. And then we're going to exchange. We're going to give you shares of the fund. You're going to bring in your 700 or whatever that number ends up being that you decide you want to contribute. And now you're going to own a bigger piece, and it's all tax exempt because you didn't touch the money. You contributed in just like you would do on an upleg in a 1031 exchange.
Is that just real estate, or can you do that with businesses as well? Do you know?
That's a great question.
I
don't have the answer to that.
Yeah.
So you're saying like if you sold a business and bought another business through 721? I don't know. I don't have the answer. That's why we have smarter people than me on the team.
Yeah, we could take it offline. I'm just curious. I love the 721 exchange. It seems like it's a really great way to retire. And get the benefits of the real estate and the cash flow. And like you said, the tax benefits of depreciation, which is a phantom loss for our listeners, and appreciation, which is generational wealth growth. Are these properties that people are contributing, are they all managed by SMI? Are they all in the Northwest? Or is this something like, hey, I've got 3 mobile home parks in North Carolina that I want to contribute to the fund?
That's a really great question, Travis. For us, the fund is Northwest. So we're primarily Washington, Oregon for now. I imagine there will be a day where we probably will spread our wings. We've looked at other states already. It's not out of the question. We are vertically integrated with the SMI companies. And so the bulk of what we own is managed by SMI. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But right now we find there's a lot of value in the fact that, we can give ourselves a wholesale rate on management, on labor, and so on and so forth. And so there are, there's advantages for us if we can keep it sort of within the SMI footprint. So we're like Vancouver to Roseburg is our management zone right now, and we can go over to the coast and stuff like that. So we're pretty much most of Oregon, and we could do Southwest Washington as well. But as the SMI footprint grows and as SMI fund management grows, the companies are all kind of growing together, and it has this sort of organic thing that's happening where they're all benefiting from each other.
Awesome, man. Well, we're a little bit over time here, so I've got just 2 questions left. I guess the one question that I have selfishly is before I get into that question, going back to the guy that's listening to this, like, this is great, but man, what duplex? We talk about daisy chaining strategies. You said you bought a duplex, you grew it, you might have sold it, did a 1031 exchange into a nineplex. Would you recommend to our listeners that maybe have a duplex or 0 properties? Like, if you were to sum up, not to put you on the spot here, but I am, if you were to sum up sort of your recipe for scale and growing to 1,000 plus units, even personally in your own personal portfolio, and you were to tell us, you met somebody in the elevator, you're like, man, like, if you were to sum it up in 20 seconds, what are the things I got to focus on to go from 0 to 1,000 in the next 5 years, 7 years? Like, how would you frame up that answer?
Well, the first obvious answer is you don't have enough money to go buy 1,000. And so you got to learn how to use other people's money, which I'm sure you guys talk about all the time. This SMI fund is one way to do it. We can have people just contribute their real estate in. We don't have to come up with a lot of money. Another way you can do it is through seller carry. You can do creative deals and creative structures. And so I don't own a single piece of real estate without partners. I have partners and everything. I believe that all my partners are smarter than I am. I try to find partners who are younger, smarter, better looking, wealthier, like guys like you, like I want people on my team that I look to them and I'm like, that guy knows what he's talking about. I am definitely the dummy on the team. Like the only thing I'm good at is recognizing genius in other people. That's what I bring. I'm just a cheerleader, right? And so somehow this all comes together just because I pooled all of these smart people together. I'm literally the dumbest person on our team. I'm not
surround yourself with people smarter than you. Everything you do, surround yourself with people who are way smarter.
Always.
It's easy. Yeah, easy for me too.
And so that would be one bit of advice: is surround yourself with smarter people. Find a way to utilize. Look at a deal. Don't look at a deal linear, like in a linear path. Think about a deal like it's a piece of art. I think this is my creative side of my brain really enjoys this part of a deal. Is everybody's so focused on the same thing. If you really think about the way most of the world works, it's very win-lose. It's very much, I got to rip this deal for a low price. I got to go sell it for way more than it's worth. I got to do all the, that's just the way your brain goes. If you can break the mold of that and let your brain expand beyond prices and interest rates and these things and start thinking about the people, think about who's involved in this deal. There's you, but then there's also the seller, there's the broker, there's whoever, and think about what everybody else needs out of that deal. And what I've done in both my businesses and my real estate portfolio is I've done a good job of figuring out what that other person really needs and what they really want. And then I give them that. And I make sure they get what they want out of the deal so that I'm their perfect buyer. And when I'm their perfect buyer, you can't imagine the power you're going to have in buying real estate, because people will let you buy deals with no money. And guess what? That works really great for me, because when I started building this, I had no money. People think, oh, you got out of the car lot, you sold it, you made a bunch of money. I had $12,000 in my bank account. That was it. I didn't use any of that to buy real estate. When I bought from the very first deal I bought to the deals I'm buying today, I found a way to buy them with other people's money. I very rarely use my own cash, at least for down payment. I do use my cash for CapEx. I do use it sometimes. The building might bleed, or you may have to write a check for something. The beauty of that is it's all a tax write-off. So rather than going out, and I learned this from Paul Curley, then instead of going out and making a bunch of cash and paying taxes on it, and then taking that post-tax dollar and going and parking it in something that's illiquid where I can't get it, I go buy the asset without any of that money. And then if the building needs me to pay it money, now I get a tax write-off.
It was interest. Interest on debt. You take on debt. Interest is also a tax write-off.
I get I get the interest write-off. I get the operations write-off. I get the depreciation. Like, there's a way for you, the way that I've structured it being a real estate professional, there's a way for me to make a ridiculous amount of money and not have to pay taxes. And I think that, you read it in the first chapter of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He says that the rich are not any smarter than you. They just play by a different set of rules. Well, guess what the rule book is? It's that tax code thing that Logan geeks out on, right? Like, if you read the tax code, it will tell you, go buy businesses and buy buildings, and we'll partner with you so you can make money and not pay taxes. It is rigged, but it's rigged for a reason. It's set up that way on purpose.
Yeah, the government doesn't want to be in the business of providing jobs and housing and They've provided a lot of work in the last
the
couple of years.
government needs us. They need us to provide jobs and housing. You go provide jobs and housing, and guess what? They reward you with, hey, everybody else has to pay taxes, but you don't.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Gabe, this has been an awesome episode. Like, I can't wait till this airs. I know our listeners are going to get a ton of value. There is one question that we ask all our guests. Travis, I don't know if you had anything else for Gabe before I ask the final question.
I know we're over, and you guys are going to.
We'll do a part two.
Yeah, never mind. I was going to ask about the outlook of multifamily, but I think it's great. Buy real estate.
Long term, it'll be fine. Don't worry,
Yeah,
Travis.
I agree. Yeah. Well, I think there's going to be an undersupply in a lot of markets. I think
We'll have you back on. We'll have you back on. Gabe, the question we ask all our guests every week on the 0 to 100 podcast show: if you were to lose it all, both your cash flow, your net worth, all your assets, and you've also lost your network, what's the first move you make? What do you do next? So you wake up tomorrow, you're sitting on the curb outside of your house, and you lost your house too, but you have nothing. What's the first thing you do?
I'd go back to when I was 8 years old and find something I could get on my bicycle and go sell.
Cars?
Just do it all over again.
No, I love that. Rarely does someone say when we ask that question, I'd go get a job. Because I think once people scale a portfolio and assets and businesses, they realize that time is the most important asset. And clocking in, like you said at the beginning of the show, 10 hours a day, it just robs you of your soul and your time. But I do love making a lot of vertical income or a lot of active income to then put it into long-term assets and long-term wealth growth, which is what you've done.
You know what I don't like about working W-2 is you know what your paycheck's going to be at the end of the month. And that doesn't work for me. It's one of the reasons why I got into commission sales. If I did have to take a job, it would be at a job where I didn't have a ceiling. I would never take a salary. I would never take an hourly rate because I feel like I need to be in control of my own destiny. And at least if you can give me a job, you guys want to hire me and you say, Gabe, you can make infinite amount of money. You just have to perform and here's the product to go sell. And I believe in it. Then I believe, because like we talked about the life skill of selling, I believe that my net worth is right here. You can take it all away and I can still do it because I've got all the value right here. I can always go sell anything. You give me something that's got value and I'll go sell it.
Amen. Speak for the
Gabe, man, I appreciate you jumping on here, and I look forward to when we get to hang out in person next.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Everybody go check out Deal Junkies with Gabe. We'll in the show notes, we'll put how to contact Gabe and how to contact the folks over at SMI Real Estate. Echo what Gabe said. Gabriel, I echo what Gabriel said. Gabe, thank you so much for joining us today. Look forward to seeing you again in person. And I think we absolutely need to get you back on the show. This was a fantastic episode. Bye, everybody.